Okay, let's just assume for a second that this is all real, that there's a secret UFO program that's been running for decades, right? Recovering and reverse engineering tech that's, well, not from around here. It brings up one absolutely massive question.
I mean, seriously, how do you hide something that big? We're talking about keeping a 90-year secret from the entire world, from spy satellites that can read a license plate from space, from nosy reporters, from us. The sheer logistics of keeping that kind of secret, it's just mind-boggling. And this isn't just some fringe theory. We've got David Grush, a high-level intelligence community whistleblower, coming out and calling it a multi-decade secret Cold War. Think about that. A secret war fought in the shadows for almost 100 years. This is not some small-time operation we're talking about. This is huge.
So, if you're going to hide something that massive, putting it in a regular hangar just isn't going to cut it, right? Surface-level security is a joke. So where do you put it? Well, a ton of research, a ton of testimony, all points in one direction. The answer might not be up in the sky, but deep, deep underground. All right, so hiding the impossible, how do you do it? Let's dive in and look at the evidence that suggests there's a whole secret world, a sprawling network built literally right under our feet.
And look, the very first thing we have to get straight is that this is not some wild conspiracy theory. It's a fact. The bases exist.
Let me be super clear about this. Deep underground military bases, sometimes called DUMBs, this isn't stuff from a sci-fi movie. This is documented reality, a historical fact, and it's been confirmed by the very people who actually built them. Take this quote from 1989. This is Lloyd Dushala, the deputy director of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. He's giving a speech, and he basically admits, yeah, some of the most interesting facilities we've ever built are still classified. It's like he's saying, the really cool stuff, I can't even tell you about it. That's a huge admission of secrecy right there.
And we have real-world public examples that prove these things are real. I mean, look at the NORAD complex under Cheyenne Mountain. That's practically a city, buried 2,000 feet underground, built to survive a direct nuclear hit. Then you've got the Raven Rat complex, also known as Site R, or the backup Pentagon. Another gigantic underground city, super mysterious. And here's the kicker. These are just the ones they admit to.
Okay, so the U.S. is building these incredible underground fortresses. But where did they get the know-how? I mean, who were the experts in this stuff? Well, the answer is kind of shocking. It all goes back to World War II. So, when the Allies were pushing into Germany, they found something incredible. The Nazis had built entire underground industrial cities, places like Ordu and Riesenwurm, to hide their secret weapons programs. Now, after the war, you've heard of Operation Paperclip, right? We brought over their rocket scientists. But what most people don't know is we also brought over their master underground engineers, guys like Xavier Dorsch. And it's not a secret. By 1947, there are declassified documents showing the U.S. military specifically asking for these German experts to kickstart America's own underground plant program. The blueprint, the expertise, it came straight from them. All right, so having a few standalone bases, I can wrap my head around that. But what a lot of the testimony describes is a massive, interconnected network of these things, tunnels stretching for hundreds of miles. How on earth would that even be possible? Well, it all comes down to the tech. It really boils down to two things. First, how you dig the tunnels. You need absolutely massive tunnel boring machines, TBMs, that can just munch through miles of solid rock. And second, how you connect them. We're talking about plans for super high-speed transit systems that honestly sound like something from a movie. And if you thought that sounded wild, hold on, get this. Back in the 70s, Los Alamos National Labs, the place that gave us the atomic bomb, they patented a machine called the nuclear submarine. This thing was designed to use a compact nuclear reactor to literally melt its way through solid rock, leaving behind a perfectly smooth glass-lined tunnel. We don't know for sure if they ever built one, but the patent is real, the concept was on the table. And don't write this off as some wacky idea from a comic book. In 1972, the RAND Corporation, a super serious government think tank, put out a study looking into a very high-speed transit system. And the speeds they were talking about were just insane. Up to 14,000 miles per hour. That would get you from LA to New York in 21 minutes. The point is, these weren't just fantasies. This was being seriously investigated by the big players. So if a network like this really does exist, where would it be? Well, decades of research, insider testimony, and leaked information all seem to point to one very specific, very secretive part of the country. We're talking about California's Antelope Valley. This place is basically the heart and soul of the American aerospace industry. You've got Edwards Air Force Base, Lockheed's legendary Skunk Works, it's all there. And for years, researchers have been saying that underneath all that official activity, there is a dense network of these deep underground bases, all tied to these legacy UFO programs. And what's really clever is how this stuff is supposedly hidden in plain sight. Take the Northrop facility out at Tejon Ranch. Its nickname is the Ant Hill. Officially, it's a radar testing site, but the alleged function? Manufacturing and storing alien reproduction vehicles, or ARVs. You've got Edwards Air Force Base, officially for flight testing, right? The rumor is that's where the real reverse engineering program is. And China Lake, a naval weapons station. The whispers are that they have weapons more powerful than nuclear there. It's like a whole secret world operating in parallel, right underneath the official one. So when you start to put all these pieces together, a pretty compelling picture starts to take shape, doesn't it?
Okay, let's just run through it one more time. We know for a fact that these huge underground bases are real. We know the US brought in the Nazi engineers who were experts at building them. We know the almost science fiction level technology to connect them all was seriously developed. And we have a ton of testimony pointing to a very specific location where all this is supposed to be happening.
Look, every single piece of this puzzle, the fact that the bases are real, the German engineering connection, the wild transit tech, it's all backed up by documents and real history. So the question really isn't if this secret world could exist. The real question is, what incredible, maybe even world-changing secrets are they still hiding down there, deep beneath our feet?
Okay, today we are diving into one of the biggest and honestly most underreported stories happening in tech right now. It's this massive collision between the AI boom and the future of our energy. Let's get right into it. So it all kicks off with this fundamental problem that's kind of hiding in plain sight, right behind the whole AI gold rush. You see, they've got the chips, they've got the giant data centers, but they are missing one absolutely crucial ingredient.
And there it is. That's the whole problem. The entire AI revolution we hear about every single day is being built on a power grid that's already stretched to its limit. They just can't get enough electricity to power their huge ambitions, and it is forcing them to make a really, really radical choice. So let's really try to get a handle on just how enormous this power problem is. Because, the numbers behind AI's energy appetite, they are absolutely staggering. Now, what's really wild here is the speed of this change. Right now, data centers are chewing up about 4.4% of all electricity in the US. But with AI driving demand, that is projected to nearly triple to 12% in just the next few years. I mean, that is a completely unprecedented rate of growth for a single industry.
And to put this challenge into perspective, get this. Goldman Sachs estimates that we need 90 gigawatts of new power generation by 2030, just for AI. To put that in perspective, that's like building 19 brand new, massive nuclear power plants in just 5 years. That's a nearly impossible task with the way we build things today.
And you might be sitting there thinking, well, why not just build more wind turbines and solar farms? Well, it turns out the old solutions, they don't quite work for AI's very specific, very demanding needs. So here's the crucial point. Big tech is basically caught in a trap. They need power 24/7, all day, all night, which renewables like solar and wind just can't guarantee, right? The sun goes down, the wind stops flowing. But at the same time, they've all made these huge public pledges to be carbon-free, so they can't just fire up a bunch of natural gas plants without facing a massive backlash. They desperately need a third option, something that is both carbon-free and runs around the clock. And that search has led them to this: a plan to completely re-engineer nuclear power for the 21st century. And honestly, it creates a solution that sounds like something straight out of science fiction. They're called small modular reactors, or SMRs. And the core idea here is to completely flip the script. You stop building nuclear plants as these massive, one-off, custom construction projects, and you start manufacturing them like you would a product, with standardized parts that are built in a factory. And the difference is just dramatic. Instead of a $35 billion 15-year mega project, the SMR pitch is for a $1 to $3 billion product that you can get up and running in 5 to 7 years. Now, for Silicon Valley, which lives and dies on software timelines, that kind of speed is an absolute game changer.
And listen, this isn't just some theory on a whiteboard. Over the last year, the world's largest tech companies have been quietly signing contracts worth billions of dollars to make this stuff a reality.
So first up, you've got the company that basically runs a huge chunk of the entire internet, Amazon.
So, in late 2024, Amazon led a $500 million investment into a nuclear startup and then immediately signed on for their first project. The initial plan starts with 4 of these small reactors, but, and this is key, it includes an option to scale up to nearly a gigawatt of clean power, all to directly support its data centers. And then, literally just 2 days after Amazon's announcement, Google made its own major move into advanced nuclear. Now, Google's strategy is a little different. They're partnering up to build a new advanced reactor out in Tennessee. And the goal is simple: inject hundreds of megawatts of clean, reliable 24/7 power directly into the regional grid that feeds its massive AI data centers right there. Microsoft, on the other hand, well, they're taking a completely different and, you could argue, a much more direct approach. Instead of building something brand new, they signed a deal to bring back a very famous name, 3 Mile Island. They're putting in over $1 billion to restart the undamaged reactor, the one right next to the one that famously melted down. And by doing so, they're securing over 800 megawatts of carbon-free power specifically for their data centers, starting in 2027. And the list just keeps growing. The company behind Facebook and Instagram, Meta, has now thrown its hat into the ring. Yeah, in late 2024, Meta put out what is basically a nuclear shopping list. And just look at the scale of this. They're asking for between 1 and 4 gigawatts of new nuclear power. I mean, that is an enormous amount of energy, enough to power a small country, all to fuel its future AI ambitions. So when you add all of these deals up, it becomes really clear what this is. It's a massive gamble. And it's one with huge geopolitical competition and just enormous financial stakes. And, this isn't just about corporate power bills. It has become a full-blown geopolitical race. While the U.S. is still in the planning stages for all this, China already has an advanced SMR connected to its grid and operating commercially. Whoever builds out this energy infrastructure fastest is going to gain a crucial advantage in the global AI race. But, of course, not everyone is convinced this is a good idea. Groups like the Union of Concerned Scientists have raised some pretty serious safety flags, arguing that, smaller doesn't automatically mean safer. They're warning against relaxing safety regulations for these new designs before they've really been proven in the real world. So what is the price tag for this massive gamble? Well, if all the announced projects that are linked to AI actually get built, the total investment could easily approach $80 billion. That's the size of the bet that big tech is making on this still unproven technology. Which leaves us with the ultimate question, right? If this whole thing works, nuclear power could actually transform from a mega project into a manufactured product. And that could unlock a whole new era of clean energy. But if it fails, the growth of AI itself could just hit a hard wall. So, will this $80 billion bet pay off, or is Silicon Valley heading for a very, very expensive dead end?